I'd like to mention here, also picking up from what Fatima said, there is obvious discrimination and systematic discrimination at play. If you look at the events of just the last 15 days or so, or just the last month, when the recent clashes between Hamas and Israeli forces took place, we saw that the Israeli forces arrested a lot of Palestinians, and they said that they were arresting rioters, quote unquote, and not protesters, which is what Palestinians on the ground claimed, or people who were arrested. And we know there were activists like Muhammad al-Kurd and his sister Mona al-Kurd, who actually were just protesting to save their homes, who were also picked up. But when, after the ceasefire was agreed upon, when the Israeli authorities under the new Prime Minister Naftali Bennett allowed for the flag march to be carried out by the Israelis, and many of them ultra-Orthodox Jews as well, we heard them chant death to Arabs, and these are sort of despicable things to say, and offensive to anybody who hears such chants, even if you're not an Arab. But we did not sort of hear of Israel making any arrests then. So it's sort of obvious that there is systematic discrimination at play, and I don't know what my co-panelists think about Naftali Bennett being the new prime minister, but I suspect, and I've been talking to a lot of Palestinian intellectuals who fear that it might actually get worse. But as a journalist, you sort of have to approach it in a way that, I mean, of course, there are a lot of other people who've been working on this topic for much longer, and I had to speak to them. And Palestinian intellectuals, they were pretty honest in their assessment, and they said, look, there are several scenarios that could play out. One is that nothing happens because Bennett is going to be prime minister for 2 years, and the coalition that he's heading is very fragile, and they don't really want to rock the boat, so why talk about Palestinians anyway? And if you do go to Israel, you see that inside Israel, Palestinians and their well-being is sort of not an issue. It's a non-issue. They have their internal issues, and that's what they talk about. One possibility is that nothing happens. But the other possibility is that Mr. Bennett actually carries out the policy that he's always promised to carry out, which is pro-settlements, which is against a two-state solution. And what worries a lot of Palestinian thinkers is that this prime minister has actually said that he wants to go on, carry out more illegal settlements, and he actually thinks that there is a Palestinian state. He thinks that Israel has already given Palestinians a state in the form of Gaza, and he claims 60% of the West Bank, all of Area C. If you know, after the Oslo Accords, occupied West Bank was sort of seen Area A, B, and C. He claims all of Area C. So if you now look at just the last week and all the things that the Israeli government has cleared, they've cleared the demolition of the house of a man that they said attacked Israelis. Collective punishment again, imposing against the family of that man, even if that man, did commit the crime that the Israeli authorities are saying that he did. The second thing that they've done is, for the first time in 6 months, they've cleared construction in West Bank. Now, we do know that the Biden administration had asked Netanyahu for an unofficial freeze on illegal settlements. But now, just today, it was reported in Israeli papers that a construction ban has been lifted. So we already sort of see these moves, and one wonders if Mr. Bennett is actually going to be worse than even Bibi, if that's even, possible. Well, I agree with Fatima, but I also sort of, feel that it's a really tense atmosphere, especially in homes where Palestinians and Jewish settlers have been forced, I would say, to live together. And we've seen that in, so many videos that have been published by Palestinians in East Jerusalem and in West Bank. And you can sort of sense the tension, and your heart goes out for both people, really, to see that they should be having a good time together as neighbors, but actually there is a lot of tension. And why wouldn't there be, because, I mean, somebody starts to live in my house, I'm bound to be upset with them. I think first the Palestinian Authority must start to speak up more for the Palestinians and try and have some sort of a truce with Hamas, because as long as that's not the case, the Israelis are always going to be using their division as an excuse to not sit on the table and even talk about peace. Their stance towards Naftali should be a tough one. Naftali does not actually recognize them as a proper a government. He says they've got some sort of an autonomy, and that's as far as I'm ready to go. There's not going to be a state for Palestinians in West Bank, and they already have one in Gaza. So I would imagine that their policy towards Naftali should be a tough one, but they should try to get some sort of a truce working with Hamas and get Biden on their side to start the talk.
This video is about the daily life for Palestinians all across the Palestinian territories. Everywhere they live, there is this threat of it's either settler-sanctioned, settlers attacking Palestinians that are sanctioned by, go unpunished basically by the state, or it is the Israeli military or the Israeli police. For me, this video is a picture of daily life for Palestinians who feel at risk every moment of their lives, every day. They feel the risk not only of eviction, but also harming their personal security at their own homes. The periphery of your own personal space is at risk, and it's highly a volatile situation where Israeli police or Israeli authorities do nothing to prevent this situation. So it's not just that the news doesn't stop, it's the daily conflict for Palestinians who are trying to say that we just want to live here, who are being attacked by either settlers or Israeli authorities and their different bodies every single day. I have witnessed that.